Hello there, it is Arts and Culture Time on France 24. Welcome to Encore. Today, we're meeting the man some call the Russian Bob Dylan. Boris Grebenshchikov emerged as an underground musician in Soviet times to become a megastar with his band Aquarium. He's here to tell us about being known as a founding father of Russian rock and why he's back on the road again. Also on the show, one of the bands that inspired Boris, we're reporting on 50 years of Beatlemania. Let's go and meet our guest. And here he is. Hello there. Very nice to meet you, Boris.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you in the studio. Now, you're here in Paris to perform a concert at Théâtre de la Ville. We're going to start by having a little look at you on stage. This is from one of Boris's recent concerts in Russia.
Я родился со стертой памятью, моя родина где-то вдали. Я помню, как учился ходить, чтобы не слишком касаться земли. И я ушел в пустыню, где каждый камень помнит твой след. Но я не мог бы упустить тебя, как не мог бы не увидеть рассвет. Я не могу оторвать глаз от тебя, не могу оторвать глаз от тебя.
Okay, that was I Can't Take My Eyes Off You, which is on Boris's latest release, double album. Now, let's just start with that nickname that we keep talking about you being given, the Russian Bob Dylan. Your music isn't exactly the same as Bob Dylan's, is it? What do you think about this nickname?
Well, I took a lot from Bob Dylan, and he was and is still a great teacher. But I just think that we're doing the same thing that stems from a long time ago. Mm-hmm.
So sort of folk influences and obviously very traditional instruments. You play the guitar.
Yeah, you see, a famous composer once said that all music is written by folk, by people, and we composers just arrange it.
Well, let's talk about how you started out. 1970s St. Petersburg. It was almost impossible to perform concerts as we know them in public, wasn't it?
Well, you see, you could go official and perform some shit, and it would be not really interesting.
So that would have been compromising your ideals, your message?
Well, compromising what I felt inside.
Yeah. So you gave concerts sort of secret venues, like people's apartments?
Yeah, anywhere. We could play, in the gardens and the parks, somebody's apartments, anywhere.
So a lot of word of mouth and keeping things secret. What was it like trying to be a musician at that time?
It was wonderful. It was wonderful because we were left alone.
So a sort of a freedom, even though officially you weren't free to do it?
Because we officially didn't exist. Okay. So nobody paid attention.
And I understand that one of the bands that particularly inspired you back in those early days was the Beatles. Tell us how you heard the Beatles for the first time.
Well, it was on radio. I think it was something like Voice of America. But it was rather hard to hear because they were trying to exterminate the whole sound. So it was like white noise, and from once in a while it was like several notes. Great way to hear music.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes you listen much harder, I'm sure.
And you can imagine the rest.
And that's how you learned English, through pop music?
Well, sort of, yes. I realized that English language is interesting because this music is being sung in English.
Absolutely. Well, today does mark 50 years of Beatlemania. It's actually the 50th anniversary of the February 11th concert that the Beatles gave in Washington, D.C. That was their first on American soil. They never really looked back, did they? Now, lots of people have been sharing their memories of that trip, people who were there on the day. It seems Beatlemania got started pretty much on the plane before they even touched down in New York. We're going to take a look at some of those memories now.
I tell the story wherever I go and somebody says, oh, you were on the Beatles flight, how exciting. Everybody wants to know what it was like. The guys were nice, very pleasant and mannerly, but we didn't get a chance to talk to them much because they were up running around taking pictures of the crew and everyone else, and it was like, would you please sit down because we have a cart service to do.
I loved the Beatles, every one of them, but I'm a favorite of Paul, as you can see. And I was watching the TV that night on the 9th and taking pictures of the TV as a 13-year-old, just wrapped.
It was such a unified screen. You know, there were all these different people, but it all melted into one. It was primarily adolescent female human beings.
So please, love me do.
There we go. So the last person speaking there was a photographer called Mike Mitchell who took those photos that we saw of the Fab Four in Washington, D.C. Why do you think that the Beatles have such an enduring appeal today?
Well, I think they returned music from a rather artificial thing that it was before into a self-made sort of living thing.
And what was the impact? We've seen the impact of the Beatles on people in the United States in the 1960s. What was their impact for people in the Soviet Union at the time?
You see, we perceived the Beatles as the sound purely. We had no chance to ever see them live. And so we got used to music being just the sound. So it was very interesting. It was like sort of magical, I would say.
And the kind of megastardom that the Beatles enjoyed or endured perhaps sometimes, you grew to be on that level of megastardom yourself eventually with your band Aquarium. How did you experience that rise from being very underground and secret to just packing out concert halls?
See, the thing is that from the inside, things do not really change because you're still doing the same music and you got the still relations with your family, which is the band, family, whatever. And suddenly you realize that people react to you differently because when you're used to like 25 people around you and suddenly there's several thousand people, but nothing really changes.
Well, one thing that did change in the middle of your career was the end of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Iron Curtain. This year marks 25 years since the Berlin Wall fell, which is almost unbelievable. How did you experience the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Iron Curtain?
Well, you know, I think if you concentrate on anything hard enough, it finally comes. When you wish for something, it comes. So I wished for the end of prison confinement that was Soviet Union. It came. The wall fell down.
It did, and the country changed so much since. So Russia is obviously in the headlines every day right now with the Sochi Winter Olympics happening. I'm sure you've been aware there's been a lot of criticism of Russia in various different ways. And recently, lots of writers and intellectuals and artists wrote to the UK's Guardian newspaper saying that there are choking free speech laws that need to be repealed. What do you make of all this criticism?
Well, I don't believe it has any chance of being heard. But it may be useful for the people who are saying this.
OK. Well, we can also see now we've got a little clip of Madonna, who was speaking at a concert in New York for Amnesty International to support Pussy Riot. Take a look at what she had to say.
What I realized when I went to Russia and saw what was going on with Pussy Riot in this trial and what was going on with the gay community was how lucky I was and am to live in a country where I can speak my mind. Where I can, yes, I know America's not perfect, it's true, but I can speak my mind. I can criticize the government. I can speak out against religious fundamentalists, okay? And I don't have to fear being thrown in jail. Not yet, anyway. I do not take this freedom for granted, and neither should you.
Okay, that's Madonna in a very impassioned speech in New York. Obviously, she's such an enormous global star. She's got a huge stage. But you don't think even someone like Madonna's stature would really have any impact on the situation?
Well, I'm happy for her. It makes her feel important. That's wonderful.
Okay. So do you think that some of the people that are speaking up around this issue,
I've seen a lot of people speaking against this and that, and I never saw any results.
Okay, very interesting to see what might come out of all of this. Let's come back to your music. It's more than 40 years in the business now, isn't it? Apart from the obvious political dimension, what's changed for you musically in your 40-year career?
I just guess that I have more toys to play with.
In terms of the music technology?
No, in terms of people whom I might love to play with.
Oh, right.
Because now with our situation, I can basically pick anybody in the world and ask them to play together, which is incredible.
And you are playing the concert here in Paris, as I mentioned. You've got your own band. There's also lots of strings and other instruments coming on stage there. Is this you changing your sounds or just adapting it, trying different things?
That's what we always did on the record. And now we're lucky enough to have it realized live.
And I mentioned about your your level of fame and celebrity, principally inside of Russia. What kind of a reception do you get from audiences outside of Russia?
Basically the same, because there's a lot of Russians everywhere.
Okay, well, let's remind our viewers, Boris does have a double album out currently, covering the last 20 years of his career with his band Encore. Well, thanks so much for coming in to see us. Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for. I could talk about you for a very long time, I'm sure. Thanks as well to our viewers for tuning in to today's show. Remember, you can get in touch with us via our social networks. You can follow me at A Cat in Paris. We're going to end the show with one of Boris's best-known songs. This is Moje Zvezdir, which translates as To My Star. Enjoy that. We'll see you soon.
Моей звезде не суждено устать или искать покоя. Она не знает, что такое покой, но это все равно. Ей будет сниться по ночам о том, что обойдем бедой, а на его служить звездой.